My sister attacked me and stole my boyfriend 6 years ago. Now my parents are attempting to reconcile us by inviting my estranged sister to my bridal shower. My sister is 26 and I, 28. After a horrible incident that I will describe in a moment, we haven't spoken for about 6 years, for whatever reason. My parents never discouraged the fierce sibling rivalry that existed between my sister and me as we grew up. They would really encourage us to compete more. In retrospect, I don't think that was a smart move because it caused us to become really envious of one another. Perhaps our relationship would have been better if they had taken care of it sooner rather than later. When we were younger, we could at least occasionally set aside our differences, but as we became older, our animosity for one another increased. When we reached high school, we hardly spoke to one another, and we enjoyed it that way. After that, I left for college and only saw my sister when I got home, which was somewhat preferable than always being around someone who was unpleasant. I began dating my fiancé around the time I was to graduate. He finally plucked up the courage to ask me out before I graduated from college after we had been friends for 3 years. Since I'd thought he was great, I said sure. Since we had been friends for years and it didn't seem like a huge deal, I moved in with him after graduation. I brought him home for supper one weekend. We had been dating for 3 months because I wanted to introduce him to my parents. It just so happened that my sister, who had just begun college, had also made the decision to spend the weekend at home. It was already a formula for disaster, and we were both there at the time. My life was going really well. I had a lovely boyfriend, a career, and my own apartment. My sister, however, wasn't doing as well. She was angry that she had to settle for her second choice of college after failing to get into her first choice. My parents later told me that she was having a hard time making friends at college, which is why she was coming home so frequently. I could tell my sister wasn't pleased when I presented my boyfriend to my parents. In the background, she pouted. I introduced them even though my partner was aware of my tense connection with her. She instantly turned on her charm as I introduced her. I tried not to be bothered by it, even though it seemed strange, but then things became more bizarre. My sister was very interested in my boyfriend's life and kept attempting to talk to him when we were all sitting around talking. We were both frightened, but we remained silent. Then she went too far and began openly flirting with him in front of me. Throughout dinner, she wasn't even subtle about it. She was clearly doing it to annoy me. I didn't want my boyfriend to realize how dysfunctional our family was, so tried to ignore it for a time, but I was at my breaking point. Since he was my lover, I lost my temper and urged my sister to stop, since it was repulsive that she was flinging herself at him in that manner. She simply rolled her eyes and continued to speak to him. I snapped and screamed at her, telling her that he was my visitor and that she should show him respect since she was making him feel uncomfortable. She was only assisting my lover in realizing that there were alternatives to me, and I recall her saying that he deserved better. We began cursing at each other because of the manner she stated it, which really irritated me. She wasn't doing as well as I was, so I dubbed her a loser and stated she was resentful. She was deeply affected by that remark. She pulled me over and slapped me after grabbing my hair across the table. Since we hadn't had a physical altercation since middle school, I was initially too surprised to respond. However, it escalated into a full-fledged fight after she struck me. We were so violent that my boyfriend and our parents had to break us apart. Even though we were both hurt and scratched up by the end, we continued to yell at one another. It was my partner who pulled me away, got me in the car, and drove us home while attempting to reassure me the whole time that the conflict might have lasted much longer if he hadn't been beside me. So, I was glad to have him by my side because I was pretty worked up. I completely stopped talking to my sister after this episode. Although we had battled previously, it had never been this vicious for me. It was the final straw. Since I was already living apart from her, I must admit that I no longer felt compelled to think of her as a member of my family. I informed them that I had no interest in resolving the matter. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. Therefore, I wanted our relationship to stay awful. They attempted to convince me otherwise, but I reminded them they shared some of the responsibility. They had never recognized our fierce sibling rivalry since we were little and had even fostered it. They, therefore, couldn't be shocked that we didn't want to be together. We got into a fight because they didn't agree with me. They apologized over the phone a few days later and acknowledged their error. It seemed a little meaningless at the moment, but I forgave them, even though I had already made the decision not to talk to my sister. I didn't want to sever my ties with my parents. It's been 6 years since that happened, and I haven't spoken to my sister since. But as long as they don't pressure me to make amends, I don't mind that my parents and she have a typical relationship. We seldom talk, but I have seen her at family gatherings. We avoid each other, even on holidays, and I like it that way. We don't get along, and everyone in the family knows it, but no one understands why. They only know that we got into a fight, and I haven't changed anything because neither of us looked good after it. I kept it a secret from my family for over 6 years, but during my bridal shower, I finally revealed the truth. In addition to my bridesmaids, my maid of honor had only invited close relatives and friends since we weren't adhering to the custom of just inviting women. My fiancé was also present. I wanted everyone I cared about to be there. Nevertheless, my parents chose to invite my estranged sister as well. For whatever reason, sincerely, I have no idea what they were thinking, but I was taken aback when they entered with her. I was surprised to discover that my sister appeared just as surprised to see me. When they walked in, the room became quiet, and there seemed to be a standoff. My parents approached me and spoke to us both. After what seemed like a lifetime, they said that a lot had changed in the 6 years following the tragedy. Above all, they expected us to make amends because they thought we were older and more mature. Her face made it obvious that my sister had been duped by her parents to get her there. I informed my parents they had no right to do this on such a significant day for me. Before she could say anything, I gently requested that they go with my sister. My parents wouldn't leave, so tried to maintain my dignity so as not to ruin the occasion. They advised me to move on from the past. They gave the impression that nothing important had occurred, as though it would be simple for me to go on, which annoyed me. I reenacted the entire episode to help them remember it and to make sure everyone else knew exactly what had happened 6 years prior. I then inquired if anyone in the room felt that I could simply let go of this. If I had married someone else, it would have been a different story, but I was marrying the same man with whom my sister had openly flirted when I first brought him home to meet the family. She had shamelessly done it in front of me, treating him as though he were a participant in a tournament that he had never consented to. Above all, she attacked me first after doing all of that simply because I called her out on her actions and labeled her a loser. I had never had someone attempting to physically harm me in that way before, so it was traumatic for me. Despite everything, she acted as if nothing had happened and never apologized to me in the previous 6 years. I didn't feel obligated to forgive her or move on from the past. I never allowed someone like her back into my life because I felt it was more vital to cling to the past. My parents' assumption that they could simply bring her to my bridal shower and expect us to comply was absurd. Fortunately, my sister realized her mistake and left before my parents could dispute much further. My mother followed her, presumably to appease her, as I assumed she wasn't pleased about being misled either. My father stayed with me for a short while, but I informed him that since he had disappointed me, I didn't want to talk to him just now. He became irritated and accused me of being irrational, claiming that I was acting like a brat and that it made no sense to hold on to something that had happened 6 years prior. Although I didn't think I was being a brat, I told him to go since I didn't want to argue with him. He also left after a few minutes. After that, I was so overwhelmed that I had to take a few minutes off to gather myself. Fortunately, my fiancé and maid of honor supported me, and after a little while, I was back to my usual self. Everyone else cooperated, seeing that I needed a diversion and didn't want to think about my sister or dad, and we resumed the celebration as if nothing had happened. After the encounter, my fiancé and I went home and we didn't discuss the situation further. I was okay with the fact that I had heard from my parents since this incident, which occurred roughly 5 days ago. I felt that we should spend some time apart after what they did. Although I didn't anticipate hearing from them right away, they did, and not to offer an apology, but rather to hold me responsible for my sister's predicament. My mother called me this morning on the phone. As soon as I responded, she instructed me to contact my aunt and ensure that she offered my sister the position she had been discussing. I urged my mother to back up since she seemed agitated and panicked, and I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on to explain that my sister had been out of work for roughly 6 months due to layoffs and downsizing at her prior employer. She had to move back in with our parents a few weeks ago after realizing she could no longer afford the rent. She had been searching for a job, but she had not been able to locate one that she liked or that paid enough. My mother had discussed this with my aunt, who was launching a new company, because my sister had been working in marketing before. My aunt had first chosen to appoint her as head of marketing. However, my aunt stopped replying and eventually revoked the invitation following the bridal shower episode in which I told her what had transpired 6 years prior. Since I had always been my aunt's favorite, I didn't find it unexpected, and I believed it to be a plausible explanation when my mother forwarded the message my aunt had sent her to me. My aunt stated in her reply that it was evident my sister had severe anger management problems based on her understanding of the incident I described. My aunt wasn't pleased that she hadn't even offered an apology, not even during the bridal shower. Furthermore, my aunt stated that she had first chosen to hire my sister because she was related, but that she had interviewed a better, competent applicant for the job a few weeks prior. She would now offer the position to the more competent applicant since she had changed her mind. That seemed totally reasonable to me, and I was genuinely glad my aunt had a change of heart. I informed my mother that I couldn't do anything about it after reading her message, because as someone who has seen the negative effects of nepotism in the job, I didn't want my aunt to be the type of person who makes things worse. Otherwise, my sister would have been employed because of nepotism. The real reason my sister wasn't hired was that it appeared my aunt had discovered someone more suited for the position. Since this was my aunt's business life, and I didn't want to cross any lines, I informed her I wouldn't talk to her in an attempt to destroy my sister's reputation and image in front of the family. My mother began to lose her head and began screaming at me since I hadn't discussed the issue in years. She suggested I didn't need to bring it up during my bridal shower, even though I had started the argument by calling my sister a loser, especially knowing it would hit her where it hurt. She thought I purposefully painted her as unstable and nasty in order to garner the family's sympathy and make myself appear to be the nice guy. For the record, I wasn't hiding anything. When I recounted the incident, I had stated that I had labeled her a loser before her attack. Even yet, I don't believe that calling her derogatory names excused her physical altercation. It was just unjust for my mother to say that I brought up the incident in order to harm my sister's reputation. I blocked my parents and hung up after giving it some thought. I'm not sure if discussing the incident was a wise decision. My mother said over the phone that I hadn't given my sister a chance, despite the fact that she had evolved over the years. That was pretty rude of me. She said I brought up my sister's attack on me 6 years ago, which resulted in her losing a job offer. Am I correct in bringing this up? Update 1. Hi Reddit. Before I discuss the events that followed my initial post, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who took the time to leave a remark. I appreciate your nice words and suggestions very much. Well, let's talk about what transpired after I blocked my parents. My parents were unable to reach me because my sister had been barred for the previous 6 years. They chose to come see me as they had no other method to get in touch with me. I truly don't have time to handle all of this because I'm getting married in a few weeks. I already have a lot on my plate, since I had just returned from work and my fiancé and I needed to travel right away for a last-minute wedding dress fitting. I told them to leave when they arrived. We were going to go, but they had arrived at the wrong time, and I knew that if we opened the door, they would find a way to continue chatting and irritate me. They didn't go, even after I threatened to contact the police. To be honest, I didn't want to call the police since I thought it would be excessive. Being the type of person who calls the police for everything was not something I wanted to be. We agreed to let them in, give them a cursory hearing, and then leave. After speaking with my fiancé, after making up our minds, we invited them inside, opened the door, and ordered them to hurry up because we had other places to be. Fortunately, my folks didn't mince words. They said that my aunt had withdrawn her offer to hire my sister due to my actions at my bridal shower. They insisted that I talk to my aunt and make sure my sister found employment because, in theory, I was at fault. I didn't want to repeat myself because it was the same argument. I informed them that I couldn't do anything about it because I had already spoken to my mother about it over the phone. They knew I was busy and I'm getting married in a few weeks. So, it seemed senseless to come to my place and discuss it again. My sister then cut me off. They came for other reasons, she claimed, besides the job offer. I was taken aback by that as it was our first conversation in 6 years. She went on to tell me that it was really because of her that they were there. She felt compelled to apologize to me. Since I'm still unsure of how I felt at the time, I genuinely don't know what to say to you all since I plainly don't trust her. I had serious doubts about her intentions. I chose to be direct with her as a result. I questioned if she truly wanted to apologize or if she was just there to do so because she believed I could help her land the job. I informed her that I couldn't help her, therefore there was no use in wasting her breath if it was only about the job. She appeared a little taken aback by my candor, but she was able to explain that she had come to apologize and that our parents were there to discuss the job. It was obvious they hadn't talked about this because even my parents appeared astonished when I looked at them. My sister, though, seemed unconcerned. She said that she was merely there to apologize and had no interest in the position. Over the previous 6 years, she had given her actions against me a lot of thought, but she had always found a reason not to say sorry. However, she was unable to deny the reality that she had mistreated me. After the bridal shower, my fiancé and I were still having a hard time processing everything, but I could tell she was serious based on her tone and conduct. She informed me that she had been resentful of me since she was a child because she felt like she had to compete with me. Since nothing mattered in the real world, she understood that she had wasted her entire youth and adolescence competing with me. She felt bad about it because we could have been friends, especially because I had made multiple attempts to be her buddy. She acknowledged that she had pushed me away because she always thought of me as a rival. I had felt the same way, so hearing her utter all of it was crazy. I'm embarrassed to say that as she related her story, I began to cry. After that, she spoke to my fiancé and expressed regret for the way she had treated him during their one and only encounter. She acknowledged that the apology was long overdue and that she had been so preoccupied with defeating me that she had failed to recognize the type of person she had become. She didn't wait for our response. Once she was done, she merely stated that we didn't have to pardon her. She only wanted to let it out, and now that she had, she would stop bothering us. My parents, my fiancé, and I were the only people left in the room when she left. Since none of us had anticipated it, we were all sitting in awe, trying to comprehend what had just transpired. My fiancé and I went out for my fitting after my parents eventually left without a word. We didn't talk about any of it until we got home. We only began discussing my sister's marks approximately 30 minutes ago. Even though it took her 6 years, I felt that her apology was extraordinarily mature. She meant every word based on her actions. My fiancé and I are currently debating whether or not to forgive her since we haven't even finished processing it. It's too soon to tell. We're tempted to get in touch with her later and express our forgiveness. I need more time before I can reassure her that everything is fine, even though I've already unblocked her. Even though it took her many years to realize we could have been friends. That is something I'm truly happy about. Update 2. Hello. I just realized that in my previous update I neglected to express what I intended to do with relation to my parents. To be honest, I forgot about it because I was so preoccupied with my sister's predicament. In any case, my folks haven't gotten in touch with us since our previous visit a few days ago. We're going to keep avoiding them because I don't think they're sorry for anything. The way my sister and I ended up together, one of the many things I hold my parents responsible for. They still had the opportunity to be better parents, but they blew it. They have consistently made it all impossible for me to maintain them in my life despite my best efforts. We fought and argued a lot over the last 6 years, and I've always tried to forgive them, but I'm at a loss now. People who obviously don't care about my feelings, or even my sister's, if I'm being honest, can't continue to be excused. In the end, we won't communicate with them, and I doubt they'll come to my wedding. However, my fiancé and I want to get in touch with them in a few days to inform them that they are no longer invited to the wedding, just to be safe. Update 3. Hello, everyone. Last week, I got married. Everything was lovely and fantastic, exactly as I had envisioned, and I had a great time. My parents were not present, as was to be expected. My spouse and I didn't even have to make contact with them. They informed me via email that there had been a huge mistake and that they would not be attending. They said my sister and I had begun to demonize them and that they didn't need to be reminded that we blamed them for the tense relationship. They said that despite their best efforts to be excellent parents to us, they now intend to take some time off and live their separate lives without worrying about their daughters because we don't value their presence in our lives. I mean, if that's what they want, I'm okay with it. Happier news. A few days after I published my most recent update, I contacted my sister. I told her that I would love for her to attend my wedding and that I accepted her apology. It was a very joyful day, and she kindly accepted my invitation and attended the wedding. It's absurd to think that I would have sneered at my parents a few months ago if they had informed me that my sister would attend my wedding instead of them, but now we are here. In any case, I'm glad everything went without a hitch and that I'm at last getting back on track with my sister. This is sufficient for me for the time being, but perhaps my parents will change their minds and apologize to us. Life has never been better, and my husband and I will soon be departing for our honeymoon. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My sister invited my abusive ex to my wedding to sabotage it. I exposed her infidelity to her boyfriend, and she lost everything. Hello Reddit. I 3TF never imagined that I would be blogging here, but I feel the need to vent after everything that has transpired. I know the title sounds harsh, but bear with me, it will take a while to read this. I've always considered my family to be very typical. I'm the eldest of 2 sisters. Although they weren't severe, our parents instilled strong values in us and worked hard to provide us with a wonderful existence. When we were younger, my sister Catherine 28F and I were close, but during her adolescence, things began to change. She started to seek attention more and somehow kept getting into problems. Her problems failing classes, sneaking out, and lying about where she was going took up a lot of my parents' time. I, on the other hand, was consistent in my grades, complied with regulations, and never caused trouble. The tendency persisted after college, while Catherine changed employment frequently, never remaining for more than 8 or 9 months at one place. I was able to secure steady work. She would get dismissed for a variety of reasons or quit because the atmosphere was toxic. Our parents continued to support her financially by paying her vehicle payments and rent when she was unable to. I also made an effort to assist by setting up to interviews for her at my company. But she was late for the first one and failed to show up for the second. 3 years ago, during my friend Lisa's 30th birthday celebration, I met my husband Tyler. He worked with Lisa, and as soon as we spoke, everything made sense. He's thoughtful, steady, funny, and pretty much everything I've been searching for. I first became aware of Catherine's strange conduct during our year-long courtship before we moved in together. She would always arrive at our house without warning when she knew Tyler would be home. She wouldn't be able to visit if Tyler was working late. She began asking me strange questions about our relationship, such as if we had ever argued, whether I believed he was truly dedicated, and whether I was concerned about the 2-year age difference. I initially believed that she was merely protecting me or perhaps feeling envious that I was seeing her less. Since Brett, my ex, is significant to this narrative, I should bring him up here. In my mid-20s, Brett and I dated for 2 years. After a wonderful beginning, he gradually started to exert control over the relationship. He would arrive at work without warning, check my phone while I was asleep, and become upset if I went out with friends without him. He kept me apart from everyone but my family, and disputes about my messaging a male coworker about work was the last straw. He shoved me up against a wall and said that if I ever disrespected him again, it would get worse. That evening, I went to live with my parents and obtained a restraining order. Catherine even assisted me in moving my belongings out of his house, so the entire family is aware of what transpired. Tyler popped the question on a beach vacation last year. I was ecstatic, and it was ideal. I was thrilled to notice Catherine's strange silence when we made the announcement at family supper. When I brought up wedding preparations, she became excited and virtually pleaded for my assistance. I was apprehensive because of her history of not completing tasks, but she appeared very excited and assured me that she would take it seriously. I persuaded Tyler to give her a try, despite his skepticism a huge error. The issues began modestly. Despite forgetting to relay vendor messages and scheduling conflicts, she always had an excuse and would make the necessary corrections just in time to appear as though she had saved the day. Then more serious problems began to arise. Although I had sent the money to Catherine weeks prior, the venue asserted that they never got our payment, although Catherine insisted she had handled it. The florist canceled since final selections were never confirmed. We required food for 150 guests, but the caterer only had enough for 50. Every time something went wrong, Catherine would seem heartbroken and somehow repair it at the last minute, making herself appear heroic, while I became angry with myself for having any doubts about her. I stood up for Catherine, even though Tyler proposed that we handle the planning ourselves. She was my sister, and I believed she was genuinely attempting to assist. I saw her browsing Tyler's phone at our parents' place 2 weeks prior to the wedding. Tyler had left his phone charging in the kitchen while he was assisting Dad with something in the garage, and she had offered to help set up for Sunday dinner. She abruptly put down the phone when I entered, saying she was only attempting to show Mom some wedding pictures I had sent Tyler. It felt strange, but I ignored it because I had so many other wedding-related issues to handle. The wedding day got off to a fairly typical start. Everything appeared to be in order. All of the vendors arrived on time, the location looked stunning, and the flowers were just what I had requested. My bridesmaids and I were in the bridal room when I heard something outside. I glanced out before anyone could stop me and saw Brett and the security guys fighting. My heart stopped beating. I was making a big mistake. He was screaming and he needed to talk to me. He was taken out by security, but I was shaken. How was the wedding even known to him since the restraining order ended 3 years ago? I hadn't spoken to him. My best friend Sarah, who has never been fond of Catherine, showed me something on her phone. At that point, she was able to access her unlocked phone while Catherine was in the restroom. After spotting her acting suspiciously, Brett and Catherine exchanged messages for weeks. She had informed him that I wasn't content with Tyler, emailed him all the wedding information, and persuaded him that I still harbored affections for him. She couldn't stand seeing me settle for the wrong man, so she vowed to help him win me back. However, things worsened. Sarah discovered correspondence between Catherine and Ryan, her boyfriend, in which Catherine expressed her affections for Tyler. She admitted that she had initially spotted him at Lisa's party but thought I had stolen him. In order to fully express her feelings to Tyler, she was attempting to call off the wedding. She even griped to Ryan about how unfair it was that, while she was stuck with him, her plain older sister had landed such a great guy. Despite my devastation, I vowed not to let them spoil my day. Although it did not go as neatly as anticipated, the wedding did take place. Playing the role of the worried sister, Catherine pretended to be utterly surprised by Brett's appearance. When my parents learned what she had done, they were incensed, but we made the decision to handle it after the honeymoon. I showed Ryan everything when we returned, including Catherine's communications with Brett and her admissions regarding Tyler. Despite his pain, Ryan thanked me. At that point, he informed me of Catherine's questionable actions with her co-worker Mike. She and he had apparently been spending a lot of time together at work, going to lunch every day, and messaging constantly. She consistently brushed off Ryan's worries, claiming that Ryan was being overly neurotic and that Mike was merely a buddy. That's what inspired me to seek retribution. Even though I may have gone too far, I don't regret it given what she did to me. Knowing that Catherine would be having her daily lunch meeting with Mike, I assisted Ryan in organizing a surprise visit to her place of employment. As they say, the rest is history. Update 1. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired. Yesterday's workplace altercation, which I assisted in organizing, was far more chaotic than I had anticipated. Ryan told me everything, even though I wasn't there, and tidbits have also been coming in from other sources. Ryan did this by taking a day off from his own employment. For a week, he had been keeping tabs on Catherine's lunch habits. She consistently ate her meal with Mike in his office with the door closed and for precisely 75 minutes, rather than the usual hour. Other staff members Ryan talked to said that this had been occurring for months. At precisely 12:45 p.m., when Catherine would undoubtedly be in Mike's office, he planned his visit. Ryan informed me that he nearly canceled at the last minute. He debated whether he truly wanted to know the truth for 15 minutes while he stood in the parking lot. He got the boost he needed though when he recalled all the texts about Tyler and how Catherine believed she was settling for Ryan. Ryan was in, without question. After the office receptionist recognized him from company events, he headed to the third-floor office where Mike worked. He could see them sitting on Mike's desk chair together, heads hunched over Mike's phone, giggling about something through the glass divider. Mike had Catherine on his lap. Ryan claimed that they appeared to be a long-term couple who were totally at ease with one another. After a single knock, Ryan entered. He said that Catherine knocked over a cup of coffee when she leapt away from Mike. In a matter of seconds, her expression changed from shock to terror to rage. Given that Catherine had never brought up having a boyfriend, Mike simply appeared perplexed. She said that she couldn't wear rings while typing, which is why she had been wearing her promise ring from Ryan. Yes, they had exchanged promise rings 6 months prior on a chain around her neck at work. Ryan gently made his way to Mike's desk. Rather than shouting or making a disturbance as Catherine most likely anticipated, printouts of Catherine's messages, including those about Tyler and her discussions with Brett about spoiling my wedding, were in a folder he put there. "She's all yours," he murmured, turning to go after giving Mike a quick glance. Catherine began to panic at that point. She made a scene in the center of the office as she chased after Ryan and grabbed his arm. In tears, she said that she could explain everything and that it wasn't what it appeared to be. By now, a number of colleagues had emerged from their desks to observe the action. According to Ryan, other people were using their phones to record it. Those movies must be doing the rounds in the office right now. The higher authorities took notice of their argument. The department head and Catherine's immediate supervisor arrived to look into the disturbance. At this point, things truly took a turn for the worse. Catherine began disclosing inappropriate information. In her haste to defend herself, She mentioned contacting Brett regarding my wedding during business hours. She mentioned using her business phone to make long-distance calls to him. She even acknowledged that she had printed wedding-related documents on the office printer. It seems that she had been printing wedding invitations for people using workplace resources as a type of side gig. With every admittance, the department head's expression seemed to harden. He called at right away to retrieve her phone logs and print them out. They learned at that point that she had been making private international calls to a person in Europe, which was likely another secret she was maintaining. However, Ryan, who had had enough of being deceived, dropped the true bombshell. He told me something that made me feel sick. Catherine had arrived at the bar by coincidence the night before my wedding at Tyler's bachelor party. One of Tyler's groomsmen, Ryan, was present. Catherine cornered Tyler outside the restroom and attempted to kiss him after the majority of others had gone. Catherine pleaded with Ryan not to tell me, but Tyler pushed her right away and walked away. She sobbed, claimed to be intoxicated and disoriented, and vowed that it would never occur again. He stated he didn't inform me because he didn't want to start a commotion just before the wedding, but he did confirm everything after we returned from the honeymoon. He intended to inform me. Tyler was attempting to keep me happy on my wedding day, therefore I'm not upset with him. However, I'm upset with Catherine for placing him in that situation. The consequences have been enormous. Catherine's supervisors are thoroughly auditing her computer usage and spending. Mike reportedly went to HR to defend himself, saying that despite his request to maintain professionalism, Catherine had been making inappropriate advances. Ryan's observations are totally at odds with this, but I suppose Mike is attempting to protect himself. Last night, Ryan left their shared flat. Until he can locate a new place, he is staying with friends. Everyone's phones have been blown up by Catherine, including Ty, Ryan's, our parents' NB's, and my parents. She alternates between acting like the victim and claiming that we all plotted to destroy her life. Our parents disagree about how to respond to this. Mom says I should have handled it privately as a family concern and believes I went too far by bringing up Catherine's place of employment. But Dad is really on my side. He asserts that rather than receiving another bailout, Catherine should finally experience the repercussions of her actions. I have no regrets about what I did. Perhaps I went too far, but she deserves everything that comes her way because of what she did to my wedding, attempted to do to my marriage, and has been doing to Ryan. This is only the beginning. According to what Ryan is telling me, the company audit will uncover much more than improper phone calls and mishandled office supplies. When I have more information, I'll update. Update 2. If it was conceivable, things with Catherine have become worse. When the audit results were released, they were much more detrimental than anyone had anticipated. The finding of systematic fraud resulted from an investigation into the misuse of business resources for wedding sabotage. Catherine had been submitting fictitious expense reports for non-existent customer appointments for the last 8 months. She made complex spreadsheets with fictitious phone numbers and email addresses that detailed encounters with possible clients. She even falsified the signatures on paperwork confirming the encounter. She falsely claimed more than $155,000 in reimbursements in total. The really heinous thing, though, is that she had set up a paper trail that implicated Jenny, her assistant. She had been gradually assembling evidence to blame Jenny for everything in the event that she was apprehended. There were documents stored on Jenny's drive, a phony confession letter saved as a draft, and suspicious emails written but not sent from Jenny's computer, which Catherine had access to because Jenny trusted her. All of this was discovered by the company's IT team while conducting their inquiry. The employer is filing charges against her in addition to terminating her. Catherine had designated me as her emergency contact rather than our parents. So, yesterday, the HR director gave me a call. He wanted to alert me to the fact that they would be filing a lawsuit. Their legal team is getting the documentation ready, and they have already called the police. The co-worker she was becoming close to, Mike, has totally put her under the bus. He brought a thorough statement to HR alleging that Catherine had been pestering him sexually for months. He said that despite his repeated attempts to maintain professional boundaries, she had surrounded him in the break room, sent him improper texts after work hours, and made unwanted physical contact. He even showed images of him requesting that she refrain from sending him late-night texts. I was shown a few of Catherine's most recent mails by Ryan. She has been sending him a ton of emails and texts, alternating between pleading with him to return and pointing the finger at everyone else for her troubles. In fact, she claimed if my sister hadn't taken Tyler away from me, none of this would have occurred. She was aware that I was interested in him and that I had seen him first at that gathering, but she wanted to have him for herself since she has always been envious of me. These texts include terrifying delusions. She stated that Tyler was clearly settling for second best with me, that they made meaningful eye contact at family dinners, and that he would particularly chuckle at her jokes, even though Tyler hardly recalls speaking to her during family get-togethers. She seems to sincerely think that they had a relationship. However, my mother made the most startling discovery yesterday. She contacted me in tears and said she had something to tell me that she ought to have told me years ago. Catherine had apparently engaged in a similar activity during her high school years, circulated false accusations that Rachel was cheating, and finally attempted to kiss him at a party. She told everyone that he had attempted to attack her after he turned her down. When the truth was finally revealed, Mom sent her to counseling, but it was obvious that this didn't make much of a difference. Mom holds herself responsible for not informing me of this situation sooner. She kept it private to preserve Catherine's reputation, since she believed that the conduct had stopped after therapy and that it was only a passing phase. She now understands that she ought to have forewarned me when Catherine began displaying excessive interest in Tyler. Ryan is now staying with friends after moving all of his possessions out of their apartment. He met a female at his gym, and he has already begun dating her. Catherine had a total breakdown after learning about it from mutual acquaintances. They threatened to call the police after she arrived at his gym crying and making a disturbance. She even attempted to persuade our father to speak with Ryan, but he turned her down, telling her that for the first time in her life, she would have to deal with the fallout from her actions. She had another tantrum as a result, accusing our parents of constantly favoring me and forcing her to compete for everything. I'm done with Catherine. Even though I'm not sure what will happen with the legal accusations, it was all an act. The sister I believed I had never existed. I can't help but notice her true identity now that the mask has come off. Update 3. A month has passed since my previous post, and things have finally calmed down, though not in the manner Catherine likely had in mind. The business proceeded with pressing charges. She faces official charges of embezzlement and fraud. Her attorney suggested that she accept a plea agreement, which would probably spare her from going to jail, but would require her to serve probation and pay full reparations. She suffered financially as a result of losing her work due to the charges. Appearing in background checks, she is unable to get a new job due to her 2-month rent arrears. Her landlord slapped her with an eviction notice last week. When prospective employers contacted her former company for references, she attempted to conceal her current residence by applying for jobs using our parents' address. Ryan has moved on entirely. He is formally dating Sarah, a girl from his gym, and they appear to be happy together. She is nice and totally different from Catherine, whom I met last week. She leads a pretty drama-free life and holds steady work as a kindergarten teacher. There is no greater glaring contrast with Catherine. When Jenny, Catherine's old assistant, contacted me on LinkedIn, it was a true surprise. She wanted to express her gratitude to me for unintentionally revealing Catherine's plots. Evidently, Catherine had been claiming credit for her work and quietly threatening her job security for months, making her workplace a living hell. The corporation is funding Jenny's further certifications, and she has been elevated to Catherine's previous role. After Catherine attempted to place the responsibility for everything on my parents, they are now all disappointed in her. When she arrived at their home last week, She yelled that they had destroyed her life by constantly comparing her to me and made her feel inferior. She claimed Dad was controlling because he wouldn't give her the money to hire a lawyer, and she accused Mom of partiality since Mom assisted me more with wedding planning. After Catherine ruined everything, she unexpectedly arrived at our house last night. She was crying because she needed aid and was about to be evicted. I remained in the kitchen while Tyler opened the door. He blocked her path when she attempted to push past him to reach me. She began yelling that he was stuck in a loveless marriage with me, that she had always loved him more than I could, and that they were meant to be together. Normally extremely calm and courteous, Tyler informed her she needed professional treatment and threatened to get a restraining order if she returned to our home. She cried out that we would regret it and that we would pay a price for ruining her life. I just replied, "Catherine, you ruined your own life." As I made my way to the door, we simply revealed your actions. While she was in the middle of her tirade, I shut the door. I've blocked her on social media, email, and the phone. Our parents understood when I informed them I was done with her. Although they aren't totally cutting her off, they have made it clear that they will no longer give her money or allow her to control them. We have to move to a different state since Tyler received a promotion at work. To be honest, the timing of our move next month couldn't be more ideal. We need a new beginning away from all of this drama. Catherine won't know about the move until we're already gone. So, we haven't told her and don't intend to. I've discovered that toxic is toxic, regardless of blood relationship. Despite the saying that blood is thicker than water, I've come to terms with the fact that my sister never existed and grieved for her. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me along the way. I'm excited to begin our new life without any drama. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.